These people absolutely hate you. They hate you so much, they want to indoctrinate your kids into evil ideologies that will ruin them. And they will go so far as to completely lie and gaslight you as to what actually happens when you and your children embrace these evil ideologies. The latest example of this is BattleTech author Bryan Young approving of and defending the latest transgender character in Star Wars being promoted to children. This is absolutely sick. This is absolutely disgusting, but this is what these people want to do to you and to your children and to this country and the West at large. Before we get to this, I'd like to ask you, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos here at the Trent Report. I wrote this up over at thatparkplace.com, and that is Bryan Young right there. This is the guy who literally approves of Star Wars marketing transgender character to children. So if you don't know what's going on, I did a video on this earlier, but the Walt Disney Company and Lucasfilm recently released a new book titled Star Wars: The Secrets of the Clone Troopers that is marketed towards children and features a so-called transgender character, Clone Trooper, a male pretending to be a woman in this case. It was shared by this ex-user Star Wars Holocron, and he shared an image of the character that is featured in the book with the paint job with the trans colors, the trans flag that the people use, the sick stuff where they literally take the pro-life flag and have perverted those colors, very similar to what they've done with the rainbow. Fortunately for us, they've literally maligned the rainbow, so they've kind of abandoned that symbol for the most part, which is God's promise to us that he will never flood the world again. But anyways, the book, I guess, is basically a history written by Rex, and in the book he describes this character who is called Sister, and he says, when one of our kind expressed her gender identity differently than her fellow troopers, she featured she'd have to hide who she truly was inside. Fortunately, her brothers in the 7th Sky Corps gave her the name Sister as a constant reminder that she belongs. So, hilariously, he literally is hiding who he was by pretending to be a woman. He's hiding him being a male by pretending to be a woman. Literally can't make it up. And as noted by That Park Place's Jonas J. Campbell, the book is being marketed towards children. He shared a screenshot of the listing that literally says right there, age group, child. If you go to Simon & Schuster's a listing of the book, which they are the publisher on this, it also says that it is aimed at children. One portion of it says, learn the secrets of the clone troopers in this interactive, fully illustrated guide for readers of all ages. It also adds Star Wars: The Secrets of the Clone Troopers, contains beautiful illustrations that will enthrall child and adult readers alike. So they're clearly aiming and marketing this towards children, trying to indoctrinate them into this ideology. We also know that E.K. Johnson literally wrote the character in the 2020, what is this, like Queen, it was like some Queen Amidala book. I can't remember what the book is called. That's about Padme. And she actually had artwork commissioned by this artist named Uzuri Art. She shared that on X back in 2022. You can see right there, the character, like I said, was included. Oh yeah, the Queen's Hope back in 2022 is the character. And Johnson wrote this in her post on X. Her name is Sister because her brothers wanted to make sure everyone knew that she belonged. She actually provided more information in an interview with the Force Friends Rewatch, where she said that she wanted the character to interact with a young Anakin, and revealed that the idea to make the character so-called transgender came from Lucasfilm's story group. She said this story group was wondering if you could make Tipo a trans character instead. And I thought about it for 10 seconds and like, no, I can't. It's not like flipping a switch in this case. And then I was like, but you did ask for another Anakin scene. So what if I just gave you a trans character in addition to Tipo? And Sister was an idea that I'd been floating around for a couple of months at this point. And I knew that it was going to be a short scene. I knew that it was going to be very unsubtle. And I knew that I wanted it to be with Anakin because I wanted it to be one of his most like Jake Lloyd moments in the whole book. I really wanted that kind of innocence, that genuineness, that immediate acceptance to shine through in that scene. So clearly trying to indoctrinate children in this book using Anakin Skywalker to do so, to accept this person lying to himself and lying to Anakin. This is what they are trying to do. It is sick, sick stuff. And Bryan Young, this is where Bryan Young comes in here. This was first reported by John De La Rose at Fandom Pulse. But BattleTech writer Bryan Young not only proved to the character, but he proved of the fact that it was being marketed towards children. He responded to News 4 San Antonio's coverage of the inclusion of the character. And he wrote this on their Facebook. He says, "Sister is a great character, and the headline seems to imply maybe it's not appropriate for all ages, but it totally is. I don't understand the uproar here. It absolutely is not." But that isn't all that he said. He would obviously get a ton of pushback against his sickening views, rightfully so. And he actually shared how just deranged he truly is. So one person kind of said, "Go watch Star Trek." And he responded, "I love Star Trek too, but like, you watched Clone Wars, right? And how the Jedi nurtured individuality in the clones. It's why they all had nicknames, different personalities, and wants and goals, even as clones. A harsh contrast to the faceless, numbered conscripts of the Empire stormtroopers after Operation War Mantle, where they took individuals and ground that out of them by the time of the original trilogy. You must not be that into Star Wars if you think this is an issue." So this guy is literally trying to justify this by claiming that all the other clone troopers are individuals as well. I mean, what are you even talking about here? Makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Just because the clones are all individuals, as they would be, because they all have their own life that they were great. Even if they were artificially created, they still do have the gift of life. They would have their own individual personalities, etc. Why they would all of a sudden be one of them would be pretending to be a woman when they're a man? It's just bizarre reasoning. But it gets worse here. He then responded to this guy. He says, "You do realize this is all make-believe and fiction, right?" And Young says, "What BS? Star Wars has been political allegory since George Lucas started writing in the midst of the Vietnam War and wrote The Rebellion as an allegory for the Vietnamese and Vader Palpatine as Richard Nixon. Like, what does woke have to do with anything? Like, what does woke even mean? Why is it problematic for sci-fi and fantasy to reflect better representation and explore allegory and more stories? Why is that somehow a problem? Is it because you're threatened somehow by what? Being upset about this is deeply weird." No, what is weird and what is troubling is Bryan Young's dedication to this evil ideology. He's clearly an acolyte for this ideology. He obviously has significant problems with his own ability to recognize what is right and wrong. He is literally defending this evil. He is literally defending this ideology that is trying to indoctrinate not only children, but adults as well into believing that men can become women and women can become men, or even that you might be a man, but you want to be like a woman. If that makes sense. So he's literally trying to defend this stuff. This is absolutely wrong. You're lying to yourself. Lying is wrong. If you're lying to yourself, lying to other people, and then obviously it leads down destructive paths, whether that happens to be with drug treatments, and then obviously mutilation, and then the suicide rate is extraordinarily high, which we will get to here in a little bit as well. And then and this other person says, puts it really good, because it glorifies mental illness, and kids don't really need to be groomed with this kind of sickness. People like you want more kids to get confused and become sick. And he responds, "Being trans isn't a sickness any more than being blonde is. Where did you pick up this nonsense? It literally is. It's called gender dysphoria. It is an illness that's very well documented." So this guy's literally just gaslighting. And then he's trying to claim that it's just like having blonde hair. Absolutely not. It is the complete opposite, because you are indeed born either male or female. You're not actually born female and then switch to being male. Like, literally, that's why they have the hormones. That's why they have the surgeries, because that doesn't actually exist. This guy is literally so deranged. He is gaslighting you on this right here. Completely and utterly lying. He then wrote this, another person absolutely hammering him on this, correctly so. "No age is appropriate to introduce a character that promotes and attempts to normalize transgender ideology. 100%. It's not just children. Children, it's even more obviously offensive because they're so innocent, whereas an adult, like, you think they're smart enough to reject that stuff. But even then, you shouldn't be trying to take advantage of adults either. You shouldn't be trying to lead them towards evil. It's absolutely wrong. It's not normal for one. The entirety of the trans movement is completely inauthentic. Anyone promoting this movement to children should be jailed for child abuse, which begs the question, why are adults so eager to push this on impressionable children? And Young responds this, what are you talking about? Trans is an ideology like being black is. So not only is it like being blonde, it's like being black or American, which again doesn't really make a lot of sense there because those two things are completely different. Just kind of shows that this guy is not really functioning when it comes to rational thought at this point. He goes on and says, I think country allegiance is way more offensive and definitely learned. Well, that's not surprising. Trans is inherent to a person and not something they can change. It absolutely doesn't even make any sense. That's the whole point of the trans ideology, is that you can change from being a man to a woman or a woman to a man. Like, what are you even talking about? Not allowing kids to learn about it is only going to cause them problems. I actually think we should be telling kids what about this stuff already, warning them, making it clear that they are what they are, and explaining to them why this stuff is so wrong and evil. So I actually agree in that sense on that point. For kids who are trans, it's going to make them fear. Obviously, I don't want him to do what he's saying. Like, obviously, his implication is you should be indoctrinating them into this realm. Like, you should be warning against it. Obviously, a distinction there. For kids who are trans, it's going to make them fear trans folks and make them bigots. That's absolutely not true whatsoever. You can still love people because they're made in the image and likeness of God, and try and lead them away from the absolute cliff and the road of despair and destruction that people like Bryan Young are trying to lead these children and adults down. Sick stuff, dude. Sick, absolutely sick stuff. You want to bring them off of the ledge. You want to get them back to reality, and you do that by being charitable to them. And sometimes that charity, obviously different people work in different ways. Sometimes you need to approach things by being a little bit more blunt. Sometimes a little bit more, got to be a little bit softer. But obviously you have to have that relationship first to get anywhere. Anyways, it's going to increase their suicide rates and make them more confused and frustrated, struggling who they are. You are quite frankly espousing a monstrous ideology, lacking sense of compassion. I mean, this is what these people do, right? The 3 laws of SJWs that Vox Day has written out in his book are absolutely 100% proven true. Again, what do SJWs do? They lie, they double down, and they project. And that's exactly what this guy is doing. He's trying to say that this guy here, who is literally just opposing transgender ideology, is not even really advocating any kind of ideology for himself other than reality, is espousing a monstrous ideology, when in reality, it's Bryan who is espousing the monstrous ideology, which all the evidence shows that it is. And then here's another one. He responded to this guy saying, pointing out the suicide rate, and Young says that suicide rate is because of bigots and suppressing the knowledge and acceptance of trans folks. Again, the projection here, just absolute projection, as well as lying. Not their existence. Get a clue, dude. The suppression of the bigotry is the problem, not the acceptance. It's always the problem. It's that how bigots never seem to learn that. I mean, this guy is completely and absolutely deranged. He should not be anywhere near the BattleTech franchise whatsoever. He clearly needs help himself, most likely. And just to be clear here, transgenderism is indeed an ideology. Tom Nash does a really good job of explaining this. He says those who espouse transgenderism argue that a human person is assigned their gender at birth based on their observed anatomy. Consequently, when a biological male identifies as female and then has related surgery, they speak of that medical practice as gender confirmation versus gender reassignment, because they believe their anatomy now reflects their true identity as a human person. So he provides a little bit more detail on what these people actually believe there, but this is not true. And Nash says the church has a different take, one that is grounded in genuinely confirmed reality. One is born either male or female, and this also applies to hermaphrodites who, though they manifest both male and female anatomical aspects at birth, are either biological boys or girls. Absolutely 100% true. We also have Jason Everett, who specifically addresses Young's claim about bigotry leading to suicide. He's the author of Male, Female, Other, and he spoke on this subject about 2 years ago. He talked about this in 2022. And he says, well, the reason for that isn't because all these transphobic bigots that hate your kid. It's because 90% of people who commit suicide have a diagnosable mental health disorder, but surgeries and hormones are not the way to treat psychological illnesses. So they are literally suffering from mental health disorders, like this guy is denying, but that is, in fact, what is happening. That is the truth. That is reality. that's why after they go through the surgery, within about 10 years, the suicide rate climbs 19 times higher than the general population. If you isolate out the female to male transitioners, the suicide rate is more than 40 times higher. I mean, when you put the girls on puberty blockers, they become more likely to self-harm. So you can see that he's absolutely lying. That is not that what Bryan Young is saying is not the case. It is the complete opposite. This stuff does lead to harm, leads to destruction, and he's trying to defend that path, that beginning of the path to destruction. And it starts with trying to normalize this stuff, trying to indoctrinate children, trying to indoctrinate adults through these properties here, and trying to get them to think that this stuff is indeed normal and it could potentially solve their problems that they have, whether that be the mental disorder or some other kind of trauma that they might be having, because in many cases that could be the problem. But again, obviously each individual has their own individual issues. So that is what's happening here. But this guy is absolutely completely unhinged. He should be nowhere near writing any kind of books targeted at any kind of audience, given the fact he is defending this stuff and clearly wants to put it into his books. And from what my good friend John Delarose says, he has been doing that in his BattleTech books. So I suggest completely boycotting him, not purchasing anything that he is writing. And hopefully he will not have a platform to be spreading this evil ideology anymore. But let me know what you guys make of this. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, especially to each other, but to always speak the truth. And then just for one point, I'm only advocating that you boycott him as long as he is advocating for this evil ideology. I actually hope that he repents, he realizes what he's done is wrong, and shows contrition and does not do this stuff anymore, and actively does a penance for it, and gets away from doing this stuff and begins trying to lead people back to what is true, good, and right. And I will be praying for him to do that. But at this point, it does not look like that is the case. So I will be opposing him and the evil ideology that he is indeed trying to push. So just wanted to be clear on that. But let me know again what you guys make of this. Let me know in the comments below.